Hello and welcome to Live Coding Happy Hour. Glad you could join us, all you happy developers, builders, and admins, and everybody of every skill level. This is the fun show of the week. We are glad to be here. This is the end of the week. Before we get started, let's get into our intros. We'll start with our very special guest. You can see we've got a couple of new faces here. Well, maybe new to you, but some of these people are veterans. Mark, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Good evening. Mark Ruthoff. I'm working for Quint Technology based in the Netherlands. Quint is a ServiceNow partner. And working on ServiceNow for now almost 4.5 years. And enjoying it a lot. Community MVP member and a proud member of the Developer MVP program as well.
I need my applause sound effect. Glad to have you here. Brad.
Hello, my name is Brad Cai. I'm a developer from Core Platform on the fitness team based in San Diego. I work on Instant Scan.
Ooh, that Brad, sounds promising.
That doesn't look like a San Diego background to me.
It's actually an image that I took from Japan when I traveled there a year or two ago. So,
very nice. I was going to say the Northeast, like Connecticut or New Hampshire or something, but no, very nice. I look forward to going to Japan sometime. Where in Japan was that?
It was near Kyoto.
Very cool. Well, thank you for joining us. We hope that we don't make too many mistakes, but we've got the subject matter expert here to get us going. And last but not least, one of our oldest, dearest advocates, Andrew.
Hello, everybody. I'm Andrew Barnes, developer advocate here at ServiceNow. I've been in this role for 2.5 years. Prior to that, I was a platform owner and enterprise architect for 2 customers. And then an implementation partner. So I've been in the ecosystem for about 6.5 years, specialize in development at scale. So managing large scale development teams and deployment through the platform and integrations and custom apps.
And my name is Chuck Tomasi, senior developer advocate, been with ServiceNow since 2010, customer for a couple of years before that. And I think I'm coming up on close to 40 years in IT in one way, shape, or form. Old man, looking to see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's out there. It's getting closer every year. And every year I ask myself, how much longer do you want the fun to last? So, with that in mind, now that the cast of characters has been introduced, let's turn it over to our drinks in the same order. So, Mark, what have you got today?
I've got in my Australian stubby holder, I've got a nice Coopers Pale Ale. So it's a nice beer from Australia, from down under.
Nice.
All right, sounds good. Brad, what have you got today?
I brought a IPA from a brewery called Stone. It's local to the San Diego area.
Stone, right there in the area. Yeah.
And a customer.
Yeah.
Even better. So is that the Stone, which IPA? They make a whole bunch.
I think it's based off of the Stone Delicious, but it's just called Stone IPA on this can.
That is the most generic name I've ever heard out of Stone. They're usually very creative, like Arrogant Bastard.
Right.
How about you, Andrew? What have you got?
I do like Arrogant Bastard.
I do too.
I have got what is this? This is a sour boysenberry plum sour beer today from my friends over at Edmunds Oast. And what do you have, Chuck?
I have an old favorite from back in my Wisconsin days. Oh, a little bit of light glare on that. It's not even in focus. I've got the f-stop cranked down. The Leinenkugel's Berry Weiss from Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. Or if you're local and you just want to ask for it, you say, I'll have a Leinies. We said that to a lady. We said that to a lady on the airplane, and she had no idea. It's like, lady, there's only one beer in this menu that starts with the word Leinie. I think it was a summer shandy or something at the time. So with our beers introduced, I'm going to turn it over to you, Mark. I think you're going to be doing the driving and showing us introduce the topic and what your objective is today.
The topic for today, Instant Scan, the new application officially with the Quebec release. So I don't know how much the audience already saw of Instant Scan, but
assume nothing.
Well, I like it a lot. It's the scan engine is amazing. You can just interrogate your whole instance, scanning, things like manageability, performance, delivering cleaner code, having a more four eyes principle. I can't stop about it.
So what you're going to do, Mark, is you're going to help us build some checks. Why don't we let Brad, since Brad helped build an Instant Scan, give us a little overview of Instant Scan, why it's useful, why I should use it as a ServiceNow developer.
Yeah. So Instant Scan, as Mark kind of touched on, is an engine to help interrogate your instance for potential issues. It's helpful for stuff like platform issues where someone might be using like a deprecated API. You can search for script fields for that. But it's also like it's an engine in the sense that it's a platform. So any team could write their own checks and check for things that they know might be bad or like maybe a wrong state for their application. So that way customers know, a customer can run a scan and with your check and then check if their app is doing okay or not. So.
And this is different than ATF, which does the functional testing. When I set this field, I want to see this result, that sort of thing. This checks not the function of the application, but more of the function of the developer. Are you doing it right? Or is there something on here that could cause an issue with an upgrade? Or as Mark said, performance or possibly security? And I love the fact that it's extensible, that you can write your own checks into there. Say, we may have style guides. I mean, you could get down to the nitty gritty if you're a crafty regex or script or parser person. You could say, look, our comments have to be all // or /* and // format. No // comments. If I see any of that, I'm going to create a finding. I mean, that's as fine granular as you can get, and probably even more use cases that I haven't thought of. But this application actually has roots back to 2011, 2012. I remember when I was brought on to the expert services team, originally led by Jonathan Sparks years ago. Some of you may remember Mark Stanger from SNC Guru fame. He started Crossviews and then moved on. He's actually back at ServiceNow. So weird circle of events, but rabbit hole there. We were using scripts to do a lot of this, hard-coded JavaScript, and customers would say, hey, I want to check my instance before my upgrade to make sure that it's not going to break, or I want to check this app before I deploy it. And we would have scripts, and that turned into more of this definition and finding, and we had an internal version of that we would run, and then it migrated over to High, now support, where customer service or a professional services / customer outcomes person could launch it. And it's really matured nicely, but there's always been this holding back of, well, why don't we let customers run this whenever they want? And there's been this reservation of, well, if I had a partner implementation in 2012 and I run this in 2016, I'm going to have some findings and go after that partner for implementing things wrong. And that was always kind of a fear factor, political factor we had to get over, because standards change. We learn, we discover. I liken this to building codes. When my house was built in 1970, they placed outlets where building codes said you need outlets. If the building inspector came by today and said, hey, you're trying to sell your house, that's not up to code. You have to fix that. Well, I can't go back to the builder from 1970 and say, put in some new outlets for free. That's not going to happen. So I think we've cleared that hurdle, and there still may be some misunderstanding, but I love the fact, and I'll let Mark show some of this off, that you can run it from various places on demand while you're developing, before you deploy an update set, check a specific scoped app, lots of different scale. That's some new functionality that hasn't existed in previous iterations of this application. So very cool stuff. I'm going to turn it over to Mark now, because I can go on for the rest of the hour, just exciting new stuff.
We are, we get excited about things. So, and that is fun. So go ahead and share your screen whenever you're ready, Mark, and we'll start building some checks.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's also good to mention, like Chuck also touched on it just now. It's like these scans will also get results from objects from years ago. But years ago, it could be fine. It could be up to standard, but yeah, things change over time. So it's really not like this instant scan is to hit on someone's fingers or hit on editor or whatever. It's not that's not the purpose. It's to make your instance better, to bring it up to a higher level, to get potential issues onto the surface. Or what I also like of instant scan is we're pretty quickly thinking in scripting, business rules, client scripts, and checking all those kind of things. But you can also check for data. So task records, users, groups, or running workflows on closed tasks or whatever. So you can do also a lot of things for the operational side. And that's also really interesting of instant scan. Yeah, I'll just try and share my screen. I think my instance is shared now.
Yes,
Yep.
I see it on Zoom, and we're bringing it up on. There we are.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah,
Andrew's much better driving than I am.
I've got the instant scan application menu open here already, and the scan results list view. I ran some scans today or yesterday. This is on the Quebec release patch 1. So I upgraded my instance yesterday.
So can you give us just a quick touch on what these different modules under instant scan are, Mark? What are the checks? What are suites? Like I feel like I could probably guess, but why don't we open up each of the lists and explain what the purpose is?
Yeah, that's fine. I am cheating a little bit because I've built already a lot of checks the past few months.
That's all right.
Stuff. So it's we're not building everything live today, but I would just start with the suites actually.
Okay.
The scans.
Oh, look at this guy.
Well, you see a lot more here already because I also activated the instance troubleshooter. The instance troubleshooter,
which is a store.
Store application since I don't know, a few weeks or something. You can just activate it and you'll get some suites, but also I think 41 additional scan checks from the top of my mind.
And there are There are 86 checks out of the box last I checked, but I might have patch 0 or patch
Yeah,
1.
it was on patch 0, but on patch 1 it's actually 20 less.
They took some out?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh boy, that's
and I actually have a pretty I have an opinion about that because I've got
I'm
an
sure
opinion
you
about
do.
everything. And I actually am not so I think that the ones that we ship from ServiceNow should not even try to be anything near comprehensive. They should be examples of how to use this tool and not a gold standard or anything approaching that, because that's not the intent behind this. The idea is for every individual org to decide what is the things that they want to care about, when they want to care about, and how they want to care about it. So I actually am not sad that there's less available in batch 1.
I am a bit. I noticed some gaps that we have. I would like to see them aligned closer to the technical best practices that we publish. We say the technical best practices: thou shalt not do DOM manipulation in your client scripts, and we have a very good check for that. But we also say you really don't want to be using global business rules either. We don't have a check for that. And it's a very simple thing to check for too. So it should be mentioned here, we're not on the checks, I know, but we don't check against the out-of-box thing. So you will find global business rules from ServiceNow from 2006, getting back to the building codes thing. We don't flag those as findings on your instance. These are things that you have created / modified.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's also indeed good to mention, like, you're creating a lot of scan checks, because if you don't and you run these scans, then you'll almost have no findings, and then you think, oh, my instance is perfectly fine, I have no issues, whatever. But what are you actually scanning? So add as much as possible checks, ServiceNow best practices, JavaScript best practices, and your company standards, because every company has some standards. So just add them, because it also makes, like, you don't have to do all those checks manually anymore. This is already a part of your way of working.
I could see an opportunity here for sharing these checks. I may not be the greatest scripter, but Mark is, and he says, I wrote this thing that goes through and makes sure that, even if you comment out a document.getElementID or a gel call, that's good. I mean, I built that because it's really hard to find comments. Trust me, there's so many variants of commenting out. But he could put that on share and say, this is my collection of what I think are useful checks. And then I can download that as a starting point and modify it to my heart's content. So that might be something we want to look at in the future, is sharing and swapping these things around.
How about instead of just looking at it in the future, I will say, I will create a repository in our ServiceNow Dev Program Git repo and get us started. And anyone who would like to can contribute to that directly.
There we
down
go.
To their instances from there.
That would be interesting. Wow. Yeah. About the scan suite. Basically, the scan suite is just an umbrella, and under the scan suites you attach the scan checks.
So it's very much like the suites in a
ATF.
automated test framework.
A bit, I guess.
That's a bundle
similar concept
of the checks.
And a scan suite can also be attached to other scan suites, so you can create a larger umbrella.
Yeah, that's the same behavior as ATF.
Yeah. So what I for example did, I made. I was thinking in line of we've got core instance settings, we've got best practices like global business rules, not using glide record queries on other tables in before business rules, things like that. But also data, because I think data is really, really interesting. So I created these suites and attached them to the umbrella all. And you see a lot of other suites here, but those are just coming from the instance troubleshooter. So those are all from that store plugin. And the one that is already out of the box and on everyone's instance is this one, the Scan Suite for Instance Security Center Definitions. And this one contains, 61, 62, something like that, scan checks, at least with patch 1. Patch 0, it was a bit more, but yeah. Let's just have a look at one of those suites.
I want to see your data one. I want to see what the things you're looking for in data. I think that's a fascinating concept because bad data could potentially disrupt reports.
Reports, but also, for example, one of the checks is about, I'll just
like okay. Here's another one. An active change task attached to an inactive change.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. For example, I've highlighted it here.
Well, looky there.
Probably that's a really strange situation. How should that be possible in your instance? In my opinion, that should not be possible. So, yeah, it could have impact on reporting, but well, you probably have to fix something with the data, but it also probably has some underlying technical issue. Or
True.
maybe an admin did something manually, but but probably it's a technical issue lying underneath. So also that will pop up to the surface with checks like these. So this is really interesting to have on a production instance, checks like these. Or what about something like this? An active user with an inactive manager. You might think maybe, well, you might think it's just something
I've built that.
Yeah, so it's not that interesting. But what if you have
An approval? Yeah.
with flows with approvals, and those are using that manager?
Mm-hmm.
They're going into a black hole.
And then
Absolutely.
they fail.
Yeah, or you could,
or auto approve.
Yeah, you could potentially have a serious issue there. So this is really, really interesting.
Put that in the repo.
And we're not even looking now at script includes or business rules or whatever. It's just data. But
yeah, these are great.
Yeah.
You've clearly thought about this and what sorts of scenarios you might run into, or you have run into. This sounds like voice of experience here, Mark.
Yeah, it's a mix indeed. Some are based on experience because I was doing operational work at customers, or just situations you encountered. But also some where you just were thinking, brainstorming out loud, and thought, hey, maybe we could do something with.
Did you create that category manageability, or was that out of the box?
Oh, that's a good one. These are just out of the box. There are 5 or 6 from the top of my mind. But
it was like performance and upgradability. Okay.
Yeah. So I'll just open this scan check also as example. So you can just see, like, this is a table check, but then you also see if it, there it comes. Then you see how basic it could be, because the table check, you could use a condition builder there. You could also use scripting. There are 3 other scan check types as well, but those you do need scripting for. So, well, this one, the table check, you can also use the condition builder, and then it can be already this simple, like you just clicking together active true and dot working to the manager active is false. Hopefully
you can build these in your sleep. I mean, you get an idea. The table scan is awesome because easy to build.
Yeah. Well, and here you asked about the manageability. Well, here are the out of the box categories. These are just out of the box: upgradability, performance, security, manageability, user experience. So I think that's perfectly fine. That's I don't see a reason to change this. So this is nice.
So hey, Brad, we've covered up this fairly broadly already, but have you noticed that we have missed a gap of something that's in here, or that we just haven't mentioned, or What do you what are your thoughts? What would you like to share at this point?
I mean, so far, just going through checks and suites is pretty good. Definitely, Instant Scan is a lot about the content. So you want to make sure that you write good checks and that you bundle them up in appropriate suites. So yeah, so far this looks good. And in fact, a table check in this condition builder is probably around the majority, like at least above 50% of the kind of checks you want to write.
Yeah.
The condition builder is really powerful. And the script is there if you need it, but really like this is already a huge chunk of the work or of the use case that you need.
So I noticed in the script field, Mark, if you could go check the advanced again.
Yeah.
There's two objects that are passed into this one, finding and current.
Oh, that's a good one to touch on, Chuck, because I created this scan check already in the Paris release. That the Paris release contains these two objects, but if you create a new scan check, it will actually only contain this object.
Engine.
Yes, I was going to point that out, and we don't have much. I couldn't find much documentation on any of that.
Mm-hmm. It is pretty new to Quebec, and I believe the documentation is rolling its way out. But we decided to consolidate the things that we pass into this function through just that single engine object. So if you do engine.finding like you saw earlier, then you'll get that finding that you saw in engine.current. So,
okay.
And it's nice. Yeah, it's nice for other kinds of checks like Lint Check, because in Lint Check, it basically builds a parse tree of script that you want to look through. And that parse tree exists in the engine object as engine.root node. So that's sort of the reason why we had this change.
That's awesome to share, Brad. Why don't we actually, Mark, do you think we could create a linting check right now and dive into that a bit? Because Brad is actually the expert on the linting, and that's what I want to take out of this show today is how to do the linting. So I know that you're probably not familiar with it, but Brad is going to help you make your first linting check, if that's okay with you, Mark.
Yeah, that would be really nice, because the linting check is also one of the parts that's it's not described yet, and there are no examples available, so it's really the unknown. So that would be a really nice one if we can make one working.
We are creating enablement content here.
Yeah, that's the goal from today. I will be releasing a blog that will walk through some of the examples. I'm going to work on it over the weekend, and I'll probably release it on something like Tuesday. But let's build one live right now.
Yeah. We can just go to the checks and just hit new. We'll get this Interceptor page and the 4 different scan checks that are available. And the bottom one is it's the Lint Check. So let's just hit this one. And here you indeed see that you only have the script field. So you don't have a condition builder or whatever. So you really have to script it out.
There's actually a good question from Phil, and I had the same one, and I believe I know the answer. But hey, Brad, can you tell us the old objects from the Paris ones? Do we need to go update those or will they continue to work with the current and word that starts with P? Finding.
They are deprecated, but so long as you pass those into that function, that self-running function, then it should work. So either using function or that engine object, engine not finding, or passing in finding, either one works. But for now,
so I don't have to go update them.
Yeah.
My existing ones that are created in pairs.
Good to know. Another question from the chat: if we modify an out-of-the-box event, let's say we go do a business rule incident.events, and do we have to? Will the scan start checking that?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so it's the same rule. Once you modify it, you own it. You're responsible for good or bad practices.
Yeah, and I think it's also good to mention if you look at these scan checks, and we've got these 4 types. The table check only checks for well, custom scripting. Like, well, you touched it, that will be scanned. Out of the box, business rules or whatever won't be checked.
Right.
Table check. But if you use, for example, the script only check, that will also scan out of the box.
Because you can script anything you want in there. You can do any glide record query, anything you want in that script only check. Interesting thing to note about this screen, this interceptor, it's very much like if you go to task.list and click new. It's saying what kind of task do you want? This is actually determining which of the extended tables, because each check is in a special table. I went to the list of checks and said, I want to see the ones where advanced is true, and realized advanced is actually on one of those lower class tables. It's kind of like looking for caller ID when you're looking at the task list. It ain't there, it's in incident. So advanced is in the table check. So you gotta kind of familiarize yourself with the way that the checks table is set up.
Yeah.
When was the last time you created an interceptor, Chuck?
A few years ago, but they're still very useful.
They're still very useful, but it's been at least a year since I created an interceptor.
There's a lot of power in interceptors. Most people just use this though. It's like, hey, I'm going to ask you what kind of table you want and move on. But you can do a lot more with interceptors, and it's not documented either. They were almost removed from the documentation until I fought to get them back in.
Let's get started with our linter.
Yes.
Okay.
We're having way too much fun.
We are having fun.
So I've got the Lint Check here. Well, try to add as much as possible here, of course. Also the resolution details, really important. So anyone else can fix your issue as well. But anyway,
don't just put RTFM.
Yeah, the scripting part will be the most important one here. Yeah, I just don't know yet how this Lint Check works, and also
right. That's why we've got Brad. He's gonna. Brad, you've got an idea of what we should check for, don't you?
Right. So like a really basic use case would be to check for a deprecated API. Though I mean, it could be really anything that's like kind of messy in the script. Yeah.
Let's check for the old. Mark, you've used the Flow APIs, haven't you? We've got some deprecated Flow APIs that should be used in favor of the new ones. Let's
it's the new one SN underscore Flow API. But wouldn't you do that with like a script check or not the script check, the field column type check? Why would we use a linter over the column check?
Yeah, because with the column type check there, you can scan all script fields.
Or all XML or all HTML.
Yeah.
So Brad, tell us.
Yeah, so that's actually a really good point. And you can actually do this exact same thing, search for a specific string of the deprecated API. But what's interesting about Lint Check is that it actually parses the code using the Rhino engine in the backend of ServiceNow. So for example, if you were to have this function in a comment, then you could skip that because you could have the parse tree know that it's in a comment and then not actually scan for it.
That's what I was looking for. If somebody comments it out, like the DOM checker is a table check. And it just says, hey, if you've got gel or document.getElementID or whatever in there, and I just go comment it out, it still comes up in the findings. So this is even better. If it acknowledges commented out stuff, sweet. This is where we want to be.
Yeah. And there was one other.
So will this Lint Check then just go to all script fields, or do we have to perform a glide record query first or something? Or
this runs on all script fields in the instance.
Okay.
And so yeah, there's other things in the scan engine for specifically targeting down a certain scope of records. Like if you wanted to scan a scoped app or an update set. And so then you can run this check on that specific scope. But
When you say
yeah.
all script fields, is that really all script fields? Because when we do a code search out of Studio, it's not searching all script fields. It's missing a lot of them.
Well, as far as I know, it should be all script fields, but
Okay.
it skips all, like you said, it skips all out of box scripts. So it's just customized and customer written scripts.
Cool.
Okay, really nice. Yeah. So, for example, if I don't know all the API names from the top of my mind, but I know this one is, for example, deprecated with Quebec. So how can we check on this one with the Lint Check?
Right. So there is some documentation that's coming in soon that talks about what this linter check includes in the engine object. But for now, if you actually check in the chat, I wrote out a kind of like a simple template that you can copy and paste just to save us some time.
Ooh, let me check where the chat went.
The Zoom chat?
Yeah. Where did it? Okay.
If it's easier, I can send it to you in Slack.
Let me check. Oh.
No pun intended. Let me check.
Oh.
Yeah, so
Okay.
this is kind of like a baseline for finding in this case, I just wrote in quotes a bad function. But basically what we pass in from the engine is the root node of the parse tree of the script that we're on. So a parse tree basically just looks like a tree representation of the code. So if it's like an if statement, the root node would be if, and then the lines of code inside that if statement would be the next nodes. And then it would just keep on indenting from there. So in this case, the documentation talks more about what these node types are, but in this case, we're looking for a name, as in like a function name. And we're checking for three things. If it's a name node, if the identifier of that name specifically is this bad function or whatever we want to call it.
Yeah.
And also if this function name is being called. So in this parse tree, it could also be something like, it could be like a class name, or it could be like a variable. But in this case, it knows specifically that it got called. And so that's what this kind of looks like. And so after that, so long as this if statement is truthy, then it'll do engine not finding and then increment. And we have some extra logic where it increments with the node that you're on. So it'll know which line it actually found the violation on.
Nice.
Yeah, so bad function should be the name of the deprecated API.
Oh, okay.
So we've got a bundle of questions that are probably really easy bullet shots to you. And if you don't know, that's fine. I'll answer them in the blog next week. Do you know domain separation and then encryption? Like, can this operate in domain separation? And yes or no? And then can it work against edge encrypted type instances? Yes or no? And it's very okay if you don't know, Brad, because that's not necessarily something you should need to know.
Right. As far as I know, InstantScan is a core platform plugin, so it exists in the global scope. And so when it comes to domain separation, that's basically the extent of what I understand of how the interaction might be. So yeah, short answer is I'm not too sure.
That's fine. I'll get the for sure answers and I'll put them in the blog.
All right.
And then what was the other one?
Encryption.
Encryption. Edge encryption specifically.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not too sure on how that might work. I
Yeah,
don't think
I'll get the for sure answers on those.
And I can take a stab at that, knowing a little bit about edge encryption. Traditionally, you're not going to edge encrypt a script field because it's got to run on the server. The server doesn't have access to edge encrypted data. It's only available on the client when you serve it up to that person. That's the whole point of edge encryption. So you could take a description field, for example, and encrypt part or all of it, and it's encrypted on the server. That's the point of edge encryption. It's encrypted at rest, it's encrypted in flight. The only time it's decrypted is when it goes through your proxy at your organization. Well, if the code is running on your server and it's encrypted, you're kind of hosed. It's like encrypting a sysid. You've just bashed everything. Okay, so, but if you're looking at, say, some of Mark's data scanners, you would not be able to run this because it's running on the server, if I'm not mistaken, right, Brad? The engine is on the server, so it's not running anything through your proxy, your edge encryption proxy, to decrypt it and then check. You would have to be running the scanner outside of your proxy, which isn't possible here. So it won't be able to scan edge encrypted data, is the short answer, based on the way that technology ties into the platform and the way it's used.
I mean, that seems about right. But yeah, the scan code does run on the server side.
Verified. Phil says, note to self, don't encrypt script fields. Yeah, no, don't. Don't encrypt much beyond string fields if you have. If you're curious, ask more.
So
All right.
Well, and the point is that will limit what you can do with the table type searches because they can't actually introspect the data on those. So you can't do, for example, the inactive incidents if you don't have access to them. That field you'd have access to because the Boolean is something you'd have access to, but in a broader sense, if you're doing a condition against a encrypted field, it's not going to work.
Brad, is the lint checker building the nodes at runtime?
They are.
Okay. Not like a scheduled job that you have to wait 4 hours or run manually to refresh and then run your scan. Okay, good to know.
So if we were to click on the test check button, then we could run it within a few minutes. But
Wait.
yeah, I think here's also a nice example of the engine.finding notation. Yep. That's already a good one. So I just put in this deprecated API. I know from the top of my mind that one is deprecated at least.
Are you using it on this instance?
No, I just refreshed it yesterday, so maybe I have to
go make a dummy example.
We have to go inject one.
Yeah, maybe I have to duplicate a script include or whatever. But I don't know how long this one will run. But like the table checks and the script only checks generally go really fast. That's just seconds of work. And the column type check, that could take some minutes, but also depending on how large your instance is, how many plugins you activated, stuff like that. So I guess it's for the Lint Check as well, depending on the size of your instance.
I think one thing that the scan engine is kind of bottlenecked by is querying for each record. And what happens if you run multiple checks at the same time is that each check will be run on that record at once over the iteration. So in this case, this might take a couple minutes, but if you were to, or I'm not really sure how long this might take, but if you were to bundle a couple of column type checks and linter checks together, then it shouldn't take like maybe 4 or 5 times longer if you had 4 or 5 times more checks. It should be around the same amount.
Okay, that's good. Yeah.
That's good to know. So,
yep.
And that's when so that is the advantage of using suites then.
Yeah, or running any group of checks at once. For example, if you run a full scan, it would also have a group of checks. But
Did it run or did you cancel, Mark?
Yeah, it's still it's just running. You can just click out of the modal and it will just.
So it's not holding your session,
Oh,
which is great.
Yeah, that's a huge applause.
So why don't we go to a business rule, Mark? Could you take us to a business rule? And I want to walk us through a little scenario that I see happening for things that will be really advantageous for developers, which is say I'm working on one of these business rules. So just open up one of them and we're going to say we're working on this business rule.
You want to show off the point scan, don't you?
Well, not just the point scan, but I want to talk about how to pull this in programmatically into your development pipeline. So the sooner that you learn about something that you need to adjust, the better. So and there's been a lot of talk in the chat about, how does this pair with ATF and other things that I'm doing? And what I want to point out here is the sooner, the faster you get a developer to know that there's something that they need to address with what they're working on, the cheaper that is, right? So the less universe they have to recreate in their mind of what they were doing and why they were doing it and how to make the adjustment. So the earlier you do that, the better. So the point check, so scanning an individual file should be on here, except for this is an out of the box one, so it's not visible.
Somewhere there's an API that knows.
The active check, because this one was disabled somehow out of the box.
And so that UI action is nice, and it's good for a developer to be able to click that. But I would take that a step further on my teams and in my organizations. I want to run, automated test framework stuff and any of the instance scan stuff automatically.
That's what Phil was just asking. Yep.
And provide that information to the developers while they're still, close to the work. So the earlier and sooner you can set up that sort of automation, so that when they hit update, perhaps you're doing the automation to run then, and then you can present those findings to the users much sooner. You may not be at the maturity level where every update is the appropriate amount. It might be every commit they make to a repo, but figure out what that looks like for your organization, and leverage the APIs that are available to do these things in a programmatic way. So kick off your ATF tests, run your instance scan, and present that finding from either of those to your developer if there's something they need to address as early as possible. So that's the power of these things for a developer while they're developing, to me, is get that information to them early and often so they can address it. So don't wait until you're ready to deploy to the test instance to run these things, right? So don't wait till a release time to run ATF and instance scan. Run them during the development so you can address them early. And then in your production instance, or in a clone of it, you can do those, monthly or quarterly or whatever that pattern looks like, health checks with these things to address long-term. And like we said earlier with the 1997 code for building is different.
I thought you were talking about building code, not building code. Like, who was doing ServiceNow in 97? Nobody.
And so you can address those, but figure out what is right for your organization and get those run as early as you can. Do you have anything to elaborate on that kind of thought about how to use your tool, Brad?
I think you actually summed it up pretty well.
Awesome. So yeah, Mark, you can show that you can run that point scan there.
Yeah.
What are some of the other options? I can remember some of them, but
Yeah.
what are the other triggers? So we've got API, we've got a UI action.
Yeah.
What are the other things that are available to me?
Well, let's first just do this run point check of a run point scan. You'll just see immediately this, in this case, this business rule will be scanned. You can go to the results from here. What this one does, it actually executes or scans all scan checks that are active. So it's not limited to any of your check suites, for example. Well, if I go to this one, for example, let me do the, suite.
Yeah, I thought the point scan was really interesting because it just goes out and says, you've got all these checks. Some of them apply to this table. For the example, business rule, it would say, what checks do you have on sys_script? And it will run those and report any findings. Mark, Brad, does it also check any other tests besides the table checks?
I believe, yeah, if it's the column and intercheck that are on that table, then it should also run those.
Nice.
Cool. Good to know.
Yeah, you can also, well, scan update sets. You can scan applications, so scoped applications, and obviously the check suites. You can also schedule. So that's really easy. You can just schedule daily, weekly, whatever.
Mhm.
Here also just an execute full scan, so you can just easily scan everything. This schedule button actually is not aligned with the because this one is, I think, from Paris. This one generates this piece of code, and this one goes to another table. So I do want to show this one. So, well, I guess that will be changed in the future because this one will really go to the sys auto scan table, I guess. Yeah, and here you got the nice model with, well, a full instance scan or one or multiple scoped apps or one or multiple update sets.
Mhm.
So that's really really great. And just, well, schedule the scan.
See ya.
And, well, daily, weekly, whatever. It's
Right.
so easy. It's amazing.
Brad has earned his paycheck.
Can we take a look at the dashboard?
Yeah, this dashboard is a bit limited. I hope there will be some work on this in the future.
But what I found is more useful, Mark, is actually the dashboard in the results.
This one. Yeah. This one will be presented. If you open a result, you've got the related link results dashboard, and that's really a nice one indeed. Yeah, for sure. In this case, I only run this scan once now, but if you would have run it twice already, then you would also see the previous scan here. So this full instance scan will then be compared with the same or similar previous full instance scan. Well, you've got the findings, some nice breakdowns. So that's really, really nice. It's really nice. And you can just click through to the findings or rescan. So this is really nicely done.
Do me a favor and click to the findings because I wanted to point something else out about muting a finding. Have you played with that yet, Mark?
Yeah. That's also a pretty nice one. Yeah, let's just open one. It doesn't really matter. Yeah, come on. Okay.
Walk us through muting a finding.
Check. I wanted to go to the finding. Yeah. So here I'm in the finding, and indeed you have the mute option, and it opens a new modal. And this is nice. You can just select the reason also. These are out-of-the-box reasons, and they are stored in a table. I don't know. Can mute reason something. So you can just, if you want to add another reason, you can just do that. But these are out of the box really nice. If you think it's not applicable, fine, mute it. And in a future scan, this will not be addressed again as finding.
It will show up as a finding, but it will remember your muted reason.
Yeah.
So if you see it again and again and again, you go, okay, this is a high risk, this is a high risk, this is a high risk. Eventually, I would assume you would click that task magnifying glass and get somebody to fix this thing. So you can assign a task this way as a finding task.
Yeah, I think that's also searching for the way of working with this. Are you going to work with these scan tasks or not? So yeah, that's
right.
How are you going to work on this? And that muting is also pretty interesting because, well, what we already mentioned is like, you will also get findings from 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Some will only be priority 4 or 5. And maybe not that interesting to do to pick up now. So maybe you want to mute them. If they're from 5 years ago and they're priority 1, you might want to have a look at them. But but yeah, so the muting is really nice. It's,
and those tasks, is a way for the central person managing this to assign it out to another team member to keep track of them actually either remediating or understanding the risk behind the finding and deciding to mute it or not. So that's what those tasks are for.
They're for fixing the scan findings themselves. And alongside of the scan results dashboard that we saw earlier, there were other visualizations that we had for other parts of Instant Scan. And they'll probably come out as a different scope app. But there's another visualization that shows you how many tasks are completed, how many you've been being able to burn down through, developer breakdown, that kind of thing.
Oh, nice.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, is there anything else that you wanted to show on the screen before we wrap up, Mark?
Oh, well, I want to explore a lot of undocumented things, but
you've got 30 seconds.
we might have to have a part 2 on this one.
It's just a really nice subject, and we could talk for another few hours on this for sure. So,
Brad, anything that you're particularly proud of that you want to show off or spotlight real quick?
I mean, I'm glad for your warm words, Mark. I got to show Lint Check, which is basically the thing I was working on the most. So yeah, I'm glad what we got to show today.
Nicely done.
Awesome. Well, we can stop the screen share then whenever you're ready. Oh, you are ready. Look at you. I wasn't quite ready. I was almost ready, but I wasn't quite ready.
Caught me on that too. What?
That was great, Mark. Thanks so much for joining us today and walking us through that. So that was a ton of fun, and I learned some things, even though I've been getting up to speed on the instant scan. So this has been a ton of fun for me. So I just want to. We're not done. I just want to quite yet, but I do want to thank you, Mark. That your excitement is a joy to me. It helps me be excited when I see our customer and partner developers be excited about, ServiceNow features and functionality and how it's making their lives better as developers. Like that's the gold right there. So, and the chat has been awesome today. Thank you for all your questions. Some of them we haven't been able to address just because we don't have the right expert. But I will try and address most of the ones that we missed in the blog for next week. And Chuck, what do we got, sir?
I'm distracted by the Canada geese that are somewhere in the background of somebody's microphone.
I'm sorry. That's mine.
I was curious to who that was. That's awesome.
My previous team used to call me Snow White because when it's springtime, I've got all the windows open and I've got a lot of birds right outside the window.
You bet. No, it's that time of year. It's wonderful. No, thank you very much. I think it's time to rate our beers. Mark, you went first, so how do you rate your Coopers?
My Australian Cooper's Pale Ale, it's empty, and it's definitely, for me, it's definitely a 5. And we had success today. That's a quarter point, so it's 5 point.
That's awesome. That's the highest rating we've ever had. I figured it had to be good because the presenter really doesn't get to drink all that often.
Hey, you're busy typing and talking.
You finished it. That's awesome. Brad, how did you do?
Yeah, I mean, I've had this beer before quite a few times, but yeah, it's pretty good. I like it a lot. Probably around a 4 out of 5.
Nice.
Very nice. Good, good. And Andrew?
My sour boysenberry plum. That's a mouthful right there. This is good. So if you've seen the show before, I've gone through most of the Edmunds Oast sour collection, which is quite prolific. This one's a 4.5. This is excellent.
And my Liney's Berry Vice, that went down like Kool-Aid. It was gone in like the first 20 minutes. Like glug, 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 glug. Whew! That's too easy going down. But very delicious, nice refreshing fruit flavor. I don't even know what kind of berries it is. Raspberries, boysenberries, blueberries, who knows? It was good. I'm going to give that a 4.75. So with the ratings in the can, or bottle as it were, we are done. Thank you very much, Brad. Nice work on Instant Scan. Any hints of what's on the roadmap?
Well, our team is currently paused on Instant Scan. Hopefully we get to work on it soon because we all love Instant Scan. But in Rome, there should be a few new features, one of which is reactive scan. You kind of saw how you could schedule a scan or how you could run one yourself. But we have a feature where if a execution tracker failure event happens, then you can run a scan, you can trigger a scan off of that event. So
nice.
Oh, I'm wondering if there's a future feature that says if you have a finding, go and run this other script to fix it. Then we can have auto-fixing, self-correcting code.
Just build a whole AI.
You shouldn't use global business rules. I'll go put that script include in place for you. Done. It could happen. It could happen.
Yeah, as folks are getting familiar with Instant Scan and learning how to use it, and they start to have feedback, please use the idea community. So that's where our product managers go to pick up things to prioritize for inclusion into their roadmaps. So go do that, or put a comment on the blog post about Instant Scan that'll be coming out next week. And I can help get it prioritized with the product management team, because that's what Chuck and I do here at ServiceNow. We are your advocates to ServiceNow, as well as ServiceNow's advocate to you. So we act as that bridge. So
I'm curious to see what's going to show up. I'm going to see what I want to know what shows up in that findings repo or the checks repo.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a lot of fun.
That's going to be a lot of fun. So thank you very much, viewers, for watching. Everybody who hung out with us live in YouTube. If you missed it, you can always obviously check later. But if you want to join us, we invite you to turn on those notifications, subscribe, do whatever you do on YouTube on the ServiceNow Developer Program channel. And we will see you again next time on Live Coding Happy Hour. Thanks.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.